We are. Hi, Barbie. We
Hi,
are
Christy.
good to see you.
You
We're
too. You
I'm
too.
excited today. We're going to be talking about kind of last minute meals, plant-based where we can, how to be healthy, and summer entertaining. And it's funny. Like I was saying to you, my son's turning 21 today. We're having a barbecue, so it's extremely timely. I didn't plan it this way. But let's tell everybody about you and who you are and your wonderful company that you have before we jump into this.
Yeah. So my name is Barbie Aknin, and my company is Community Cuisine. And I teach cooking classes in person and online. I have memberships, and I love to travel. So I take people to France, especially, to stay at the former homes of Julia Child and Simca Beck, and on their property, and that's where we cook, and then we do excursions during the day, have cooking classes in the evenings. It's a lot of fun.
It's so
That's
wonderful.
what I do.
I love what you do. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to go on one of your trips. And so would you say that you focus on kind of French cooking or primarily, or what would you say is kind of the area?
When I'm in France, I focus on recipes that Julia and Simca created, and everything is very, very seasonal in France. There's specific dishes that you do each season that people look forward to. So we focus on seasonal foods, on the work of Julia Child and Simca Beck, and on the fact that we're very close to Nice. So the Niçois cuisine, which is very vegetable forward, fish, lighter. It's hot there, so so kind of
a way I love to eat. Well, and this is what brought you and I together because of your focus so much around the seasonal and just because that is for one, as I know you're gonna talk about it, like that's where the flavor, the taste comes from. It's also, it's where the health comes from because that's when the plant is the healthiest and thriving. It's kind of eating with the seasons. And we talk about this all the time and it feels like it's so commonplace, but when you think about it, it's really like in the last, I want to say like 10 or so years that this has really become at the forefront of, what people talk about. Europe's been doing this for a while.
Right.
Slow over here. But, it's one of those things where, we were talking about, as we were planning for this, which is, like tomatoes. Tomatoes, this is planting season for tomatoes. It's not harvesting season yet, right? And so today when we talk, we're probably not going to talk about tomatoes. We'll do that later. We'll do that later in the summer when we're harvesting them.
Yeah.
But everybody, my name's Christy. I'm the owner of Planted Places and the founder. And and what we do, of course, is teach people how to grow food, and we make it super easy for you to grow nutrient dense herbs, leafy greens in soil. And that's the whole thing. That's kind of where the health comes from. That's where the flavor comes from, the soil microbes, and it's what's really good for you, and it's also really good for the planet. And so, with that, I like to talk about, why soil? Why do we care, right? Why is that important? So I have my walls behind me. That's our flagship product where we make it really easy for people to grow vertically, saves space, saves water. And, I like to say I'm the customer because I did not know how to grow food before. I love to garden, but I really didn't know how to grow food because it's different. And so I really wanted to make it easy for people. So we plant the seedlings for you. We send it to you. You slip it on the wall. Couldn't it be easier? But people will say to me, oh yeah, but it's getting hot now, Christy. I probably don't grow. You don't grow now, right? It's like, well, no, actually we do grow. And that's why we're talking today. You can see actually the walls behind me. This is a photograph, of course, but this is actually a picture of a summer wall. I didn't plan it that way, but it's kind of nice how it works that way. Because you can see I've got some micro tomatoes growing. So this is probably what a wall looks like. I would say July, August timeframe. So you can see a jalapeno pepper in the back there. I've got some strawberries. I've got a lot of basil. But then I also have, tons of herbs, but I have lettuce. Like I've got heat tolerant lettuces. You've got your butterheads, your crisp heads, Hanson heads, a beautiful one. There's some leaf lettuces that are just beautiful that really are heat tolerant, and they're just pieces of art. Quite frankly.
I love all the lettuces that you have right now.
Yeah, they're beautiful. If you go on the website, you'll see that. It's just there's this Italian probably spelling that wrong, but it's just a beautiful. The leaves are so large, they're so tasty, and a lot of times I don't want to harvest it because I just want to keep looking at it. And but you need
Yeah,
to harvest the plants because and when I say harvest, you want to graze it because it will keep growing, right? And so
right.
it's sure later it ends its
Yeah.
life. But Swiss chard, you can see the yellow stalks there. So Swiss chard is a really vibrant plant that really it's really funny. It works in the summer, it works in the winter. I just love that. That's one of the leafy greens that's year round. But what are you not growing? Right, kind of as you move into July, August, you're not going to be growing, your spinach, your kale, your bok choy. Probably stopped bok choy a while ago, but specifically like kale, we're still growing, but it's going to start getting too hot for kale. So kale and spinach, we kind of hold off on that and bring that back in September. But that's kind of what but like any kind of herb you can think of, we're growing it. So I have a feeling we'll talk about that a little bit. But let's jump into kind of all right, we've got invited to the barbecue. We've got it's like, oh my gosh, we're working, we don't have time. What can we pull together at the kind of last minute appetizer that makes sense for summer entertaining?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I love about eating seasonally is that, in the winter when it's cold, you can put a butternut squash in the oven for an hour and it warms up the house, right? But in summer, it's like, A, I don't want to do that. B, it needs to be quick. And so many of the vegetables and fruits, obviously for summer, everything is just so full of water and hydration, right? So it's a great time to have lots of raw things like watermelons and cucumbers and that kind of thing. But also for things like the greens, you just want it to be really quick. So one of the things I like to do is I just blanch greens. I save the stems and I use the stems for something else where I'm going to saute an onion and then I just chop up the stems. So I don't throw them out, but I just just because the chard has a long stem doesn't mean you have to use them in the same recipe, right?
Right,
So
right.
I save all the stems and I sort of collect the stems, and then if I'm making a quick pasta sauce or something, then they all go in there because they need to be cooked. But what I do with the leaves,
and how do you, real quick, Barbie, how would you store that? Like if you're doing that and then maybe you're going to do that pasta later, later in the week, do you just put that in the refrigerator? How do you?
yeah, just put it in the refrigerator because it's so fresh. It's just been picked, so it's really fresh. Yeah. And yeah, I do that. So what I like to do with the greens is I blanch them in boiling water for a minute, maybe.
Not long.
And then you can drop them in ice water, and then you have to drain them really well. You can put them in a towel and squeeze to get out all the extra water. And now you've got this really concentrated ball of cooked, just barely cooked greens, right? And so then you can chop those and you can add them to, like, blend them into a cheese and serve them on crostini, sort of like make your own. Like, it's really good with goat cheese, for example, or any kind of soft cheese. If you don't like goat cheese, you could, like a creamy chev, you could use cream cheese if you wanted, for example.
Okay. And you just chop it up and mix it in?
Just mix it in, or do it in the Cuisinart so that it just purees and you have this really nice bright green full of leafy greens, and you could add herbs and that kind of thing too if you want.
Wonderful.
So that's one of the things that I do a lot in summer because I don't have to turn on the oven. I'm not standing there sauteing. It takes a minute.
And what's great about that, real quick, Barbie, is that I had an earlier I did an interview with a nutritionist and we talked about 5 ways to get in your greens each day. And that what you just gave us such a perfect example, because she talks about like when you concentrate the greens, right? You're getting, because she talked about 9 cups of vegetables a day, right? And it's like, but you could be creative. Yeah, exactly. But what you just described is probably you put that in in a dip or something, and you're getting a cup or so of just beans right there.
Yeah. And the other thing I do is I freeze everything in ice cube trays that you can pop out. Right, or you can get things on Amazon where you can freeze little cubes. And if I have, especially for herbs, for example, the herbs are going crazy right now.
Yes, they are.
And there's 2 kinds of herbs. There's tender herbs and woody herbs. So woody herbs are all the ones like rosemary and other herbs that have a woody stem that you can't eat, or thyme, for example. Whereas the leafy herbs or tender herbs are all herbs where you can use the stem if you want to. I mean, maybe if they're not huge, but they're
Like
tender.
parsley,
So
like parsley, cilantro.
parsley, cilantro, all those things. So
Okay.
when you're growing herbs like that, my herbs are going crazy and I can't use them all. So same thing. I throw them in the Cuisinart with a little bit of olive oil, pureed up, freeze them in those little cubes. You're sauteing some chicken, throw one of those in there last minute, it melts.
Wow.
Delicious. So
Now,
I do that a lot.
okay, so when you said woody herbs, when I'm putting that in there in the Cuisinart, I'm trying to get as many of the leaves off, but basically.
No, I'm saying.
Oh,
No,
sorry, go on.
I'm saying woody herbs. You wouldn't do that, but for
Okay.
all of the herbs that are growing right now, that are like the the tender herbs
Yep.
where you can eat the stem.
Yeah,
those are the
sorrel's
ones
a good example too, like sorrel.
But,
yeah.
Yeah. And the sorrel would be great. I mean, you could blend things together and just do an herb blend would be really good.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you one thing I love to do with rosemary.
Okay.
Is take all the needles off, stand by the stove, get a little pot because you don't want to use a bunch of olive oil, and fry the little needles in the olive oil. And you have to stand there and taste them because, they can burn in a second.
Yeah.
It just takes maybe a minute. And then you drain them, and now because eating raw rosemary it's too strong, right? But when you fry it like that, it's delicate, and now it's all crunchy.
Oh yeah.
And then I sprinkle that, like, again, over goat cheese or something, and then just sprinkle with the rosemary. It's
so that
good.
would be so great.
It's
I
really
put
good.
a little bit of sea salt in there with the rosemary.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh
it's
wow.
Really
so. Yeah. You know what that reminds me of? What you just said when you said, you've got the oil and then you just kind of almost flash boil it, right? Like you're just kind of flash frying it.
Right.
I would imagine sage. That
would be delicious too.
That would be delicious as well, right? Sage, rosemary.
It's a little harder because the leaf can sort of like burn in one area, not the other. But
right.
That would be delicious.
Yep. Okay. Oh my gosh, yes.
The rosemary you got to try because it's just like this really nice crunchy topping. Like you said, toss it with a little salt and then sprinkle it over.
Yeah.
Whatever, a steak, it'd be killer.
Or you get some almonds. I could see you getting some almonds, putting that fried rosemary on there.
Yeah.
Maybe adding a little bit of olive oil. I am getting a little crazy here. But could you do that? And that's just like a nice little, something to bring a little appetizer. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
It's super easy. 5 minutes to make, right?
Yeah. Very, very easy.
I love it. Now, so before I jump onto the other thing, any other quick ideas there? I think those were great. Those are great, like dips and kind of for appetizers to bring. The other thing makes me think of when you're talking about the cheese and blending in the greens, like getting your celery stalk, right? Or just kind of putting that cheese on the celery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just bringing that as a summer appetizer. Yeah.
And the other thing is, so if you blanch your greens and you blend them with a goat cheese or cream, I like goat cheese. I'm just gonna say, like the creamy soft one, like a chef. And you've got that in the fridge and you can snack on it with crostini or vegetables or whatever. But then also, if you're making pasta, you can just add it into the hot pasta and it'll melt. And now you've got like this delicious sauce that's full of minced greens, especially if you've pureed it or at least minced it really well and mixed it with the cheese. And that's it. I mean, maybe add some roasted tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, something like that.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Or saute the cherry tomatoes and then just add it all together. It's delicious.
So it's already pre-made and you have it in there, and you actually probably want to make a big batch of it, and then you can just add it to different dishes. Oh, I love that. That's wonderful.
When everything's ready to harvest, it's like just take it off.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing too, is like, especially with herbs, right? When herbs, they start growing in the spring and they just take off. And you're kind of, what do I do? Right? And so, no, you want to cut it back because it will keep growing, and that's important for the plant as well, right?
And they're also very easy to dry, right? I mean, if you have a dehydrator, that's great, but you can just leave them on a cookie sheet on a piece of parchment paper, and so I can see when all of a sudden something's starting to either bolt or it's just too hot, and I just clip it all, rinse it off, dry it maybe in the salad spinner, try to dry it a little bit, and then just pull all the leaves off and just put them on a cookie sheet and leave them in the laundry room for a couple days.
Yeah.
And then, you've got all this nice herbs that are.
And then how do you store those dried herbs once they're dried?
I have about 1 million canning jars.
Okay. Yeah.
I put everything in the glass canning jars.
Yes. And then I stack them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So you just got,
and you have to label them because you'll forget. Like, what is this?
Because they look similar. Like I realized that, like with my oregano, and then exactly. Sometimes I'm like, I think that's oregano. I have to taste it. Not sure what it is. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. What about what cooking techniques for specific summer vegetables that are like, you go to the farmer's market right now. So, if you're growing food, and they're growing squash and stuff, like those are like, I'm growing, like right now, I got all sorts of fruiting plants. We sowed those earlier. Now we're sold out on a lot of the varieties, but so it's so pretty right now, right? They're just starting, the flowers are opening up, the pollination. So I've got some little squash that are starting, but so that will be later this summer. But when you go to the farmer's market, you see the zucchini and the summer squash. What are some different?
I am going to be putting that on my Instagram soon, and also it's part of the course that we offer.
Yes,
I'm going to be showing how to do that. But essentially, what I like to do in summer because a lot of the summer vegetables like zucchini and many others are full of water. They're very hydrating, right? Versus in the winter, the squash is lots of sugar. It produces heat, keeps us warm, etc. Yeah. So I use a technique that is essentially over salting, using a good quality salt that has minerals, that pulls all of this moisture out, rinse off the vegetables so that the salt is essentially gone. And then it condenses down, again, sort of like cooking the greens, into a very concentrated vegetable.
Oh.
I have to show it on a video. I have to.
Yeah, that's good. This is definitely something for our course. I can tell because I have a million questions.
But I do that a lot, and then you can serve it because then like eating lots of raw zucchini isn't great. But once you do this, it has the texture of being cooked, but all the benefits of being raw.
Interesting.
Right.
Okay.
And so it's not mushy, but it's tender and it's delicious. And then you can do a million different things with it. So,
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I have to admit, I'm not a big fan of that, mostly because it's so much liquid. It's hard to cook with. I'm always end up with this soupy, and so this is great. Yeah. I love it. Well,
that's coming soon.
Very good. Very good.
And then you have all your beautiful salads, all your greens, all your lettuces are just, I love your lettuces.
Oh, and so seriously, the most simple thing that you can do if you're, let's say you're, with our wall, you can have up to 36 plants, but, I have all these different lettuce varieties, and I literally just go out at night, take 2 or 3 leaves from different plants. And I have, I weigh that to see how much I got, but I'll have well over 7 ounces of leaves that I just picked, right? And then I'm making a nice big salad, but I'll throw avocado in there, and I just, whatever, cucumber, just kind of, and that's just a real quick thing that I do because it's easy. And the most important thing, Barbie, we talk about this all the time, but it is fresh, so the nutrient density is so rich, right? Everything's organic. We, we grow from the organic seed, and then we send the little starter plants. Everything's organic. The soil's organic. So, the Rodale Institute did their studies, and, organic over traditional is, I want to make sure I say this right, it is 25% more nutrients than traditionally grown. But the really important thing too is 40 to 60% more antioxidants are in organic.
Yeah. And the minute you pick a plant, it's removed from its life source, and so the nutrients start to deplete, right? And so you're picking right out of your backyard, and that makes a huge difference because even if you go to the farmer's market and you look at lettuce at the bottom, it's brown. They keep slicing it to make it look like it's fresh, but
exactly.
You don't know how long it's been picked, which means that a lot of the nutrients have disappeared.
Yeah. No, absolutely have disappeared. So what did that term? Fresh is best. It's best. Yeah.
I like in summer, this is what I like to do with all the stone fruits. I just love peaches, apricots, nectar. I love all of that.
I love them.
And so I one thing I love to do is instead of serving salad in a salad bowl, I always serve it in a platter, especially for you with all your beautiful lettuces, because then you can just, it's like this piece of art.
Yeah.
And then I like to add fruit a lot of times in summer instead of like the cucumbers or whatever. I mean, cucumbers and fruit.
No, you're absolutely right. But the stone fruit is perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. And have like sliced nectarines, which are delicious with cheese. Or something like that, right? And
yeah, absolutely.
Cheese and that, and then you just have this really, really super simple. If you're having a big group, get a big platter, just do this big salad, rather than putting it in a bowl, because a lot of the lettuces that are in spring and summer are really delicate and they just smash down.
Well, I was going to say that problem with that, of course, you're right. With the bowl is everything falls to the bottom, so you don't see.
And the lettuce gets smushed.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
You have it in a big platter, and then it's just really gorgeous. And
well, and one thing I'm sure that you'll mention, or you've mentioned before as well, which is a lot of times grilling that stone fruit is really good because it kind of crystallizes those sugars, and I love that with some cheese. Oh,
and that on salad, if you just you kind of want to halfway grill it because you don't want it mushy.
Exactly.
Grill it and then put it on the salad. Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
It's excellent. Yeah. And then, on that note of grilling, it makes me think of herbs, right? And in fact, last night I was making a mopping sauce. So I went and got a bunch of parsley. I mean, one of my favorite mopping sauces, marinades for grilling, is of course chimichurri sauce. And so, and that, you need a lot of onion, oil, vinegar, normally a malt vinegar or red wine vinegar, and then onion, and then lots of parsley and a lot of herbs. So I went, chopped a bunch of oregano, a bunch of parsley, all fresh, and I just chopped that up and put it in there, and now I just let it marinate. And the longer the better. I mean, not normally when I make a chimichurri, it lasts for, it goes very quickly because everybody loves it, but it can last for a while, and the flavors.
Yeah, summer herbs are fantastic that way because you can just change things up so much.
Yeah.
And like in summer, I like to do, I make a base vinaigrette, just olive oil, Dijon mustard, whatever kind of wine, and I just kind of keep it in the fridge. And then depending on what kind of salad I'm making, then I'll go out to the garden and pick. I want to add mint and have feta cheese and watermelon, or I don't know what. You can just make things up, right?
Right.
And then I just your base. Chop all those herbs and add them to my base vinaigrette.
Yeah, and what's great about that is because they're fresh, right? You're chopping it up, so you're kind of like you're muddling it, right? You're releasing the flavor. Yeah. You put that in right away. It's fresh.
Really good. I'm hungry now.
Wonderful idea. That's a great segue into the last topic, which of course is, making really creative cocktails, mocktails with the herbs. And so it's like exactly what you just said. I mean, that's really the process. So in terms of, I'm one of these people, I love herbaceous drinks. It doesn't matter if it's a cocktail drink or a mocktail, just having that herbaceous taste. Oh, it's so yummy. And so last night I was making a simple sugar for tonight for our barbecue, and we were infusing mint. And so, one thing I'd love to do is infuse lavender, of course, into a simple syrup as well.
And rosemary is good too.
So good. Yeah. And it's, it's funny when you think about it, you pretty much can use any kind of herb into a cocktail drink, a mocktail drink, right? I mean, it's really, I even saw a recipe with tarragon, and I was like,
oh yeah, that would be delicious.
Don't you think? I think tarragon is so yummy just to eat on its own. I will admit, I go there and I pick it off the wall. But yeah, I mean, really, you just you're just muddling that herb. You're picking that herb and you're muddling that, and then you're just adding, you're adding your ingredients.
Okay, so the thing you need to do is you need to get those little freezer cubes so that you can freeze it, because those simple syrups don't last in the fridge forever.
They don't. They say like 8 days.
So then you go to all the work, and then it's so. But if you freeze those little cubes, then you can just pull out enough for 2 cocktails, right?
Okay, that is so perfect, and thank you for saying that, because when you were saying that earlier, I was like, okay, I gotta make sure to ask her about that for the cocktails. That is a perfect idea, because we made a big batch. We're definitely not going to go through it, and I love that. And so we will make ice cubes. And then you've got it for the, the next numerous times. Yeah.
Right.
Very good. Thank you. Lots of tips coming out of this conversation. So we kind of alluded to it, but I did want to let people know that, one thing that I love that we do every season is we create a seasonal gardening and cooking course. It's like a mini course. And, you do a number of, and they're quick, right? I mean, you do some great like cooking tutorials. You kind of hinted at one earlier that you're doing for summer. And I've got the quick gardening tutorials just to get you going, right? But really the focus is on the cooking. Like what can you do with all this stuff that you're growing, So we have that, you guys. It's a digital course, and and you sign up, and then we can send you a garden kit so you can grow alongside us. And then we switch off the weeks. 1 week is gardening, the next week is cooking, and we just kind of take you through it for over about 4 or 5 weeks. But it is also self-taught, so you can, if you want to go through it all in a week, you can do that. But we drip it out to you. So, yeah.
And that's going to start, like, when will that be available?
July? So I think what we want to do is right now we've still got the spring one going on if someone wants to come on the site right now and see it, but we're going to update it for summer in July because that's going to be more appropriate for like, okay, now it's summers, tomatoes, peppers, things are coming out now. So squash, things like that. So right now the spring, which is just more your greens, the things that you're growing, your greens and your herbs for sure. And then we'll move into, and basil, of course, will be a big one, right? That we'll focus on as you get older.
Yeah, and the greens, we talk a lot about the greens and do a cooking class about the greens in the spring course. I just have to show you my.
Yeah. It's your artichoke. Oh my gosh.
It's one of my.
Oh my goodness, this wasn't grown in your front yard, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about that because they get big, and you were able to cut it right, right at its beautiful. Yeah.
I know they're.
Yeah. How long does that last? That's gonna last a long time.
We'll see. I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know.
I also got these at the farmer's market, which are leek flowers.
So
they're delicious, sprinkled over, like if you just take the bud.
You know what that is interesting that looks like? If I let my scallions, we grow scallions in the wall too. If I let my scallions go to flower, it's like a miniature one of those.
Yeah.
Like it's very similar looking. It's just a miniature thing. Yeah.
Same family.
Same family. Exactly. I was gonna say it's same family, same flower. Very cool. Really good. Okay. Well, I'm excited. I'm going to actually tomorrow, I can't wait to see you're doing your focus group with your customers. So you guys definitely check out Barbie, communitycuisine.com. She does so many great things. I love in-person cooking classes, but you also do the online and the trips and just all the things you do.
I have a Niçoise cooking class coming up in, I think it's middle of July, June or July. And you're going to do a whole meal around Niçoise food. So
and you're doing, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but I love this, the galette. Say that
galette, yes. Galette. Which is a free-form pie, basically. It's just a pie for people that don't want to spend that much time in the kitchen. But we make homemade crust, and then it's a great way to serve lots of fruit, summer fruit, folded up in a pie shell and baked. Super easy. And I almost no sugar.
Oh, wonderful.
Have some tricks on how to do that.
Okay, I know. I can't wait. I actually think I'm out of town when you're doing that because I'm like, I want to do that class. I love galettes. They're my favorite. All right. Well, thank you so much, Barbie. I'm sure we'll do this again when we get closer to the summer part. But all right. Well, thanks, everybody. And we will talk soon.